Okay, I know this is long, but I hope it's a fun read. I do have to be careful because two of these people have rather high profiles on the internet, and one is really well known. I didn't include as many details as I would have liked because they could be easily identified. So, on with what I hope are the juicy details. Over 10 years ago, I worked for a company owned by a married couple whom we will refer to as the McGrifties. The wife told her first lie to me during the job interview. Not the last, though. She mentioned an employee who would be going on maternity leave and said that we knew she was pregnant when we hired her. I later heard from the pregnant employee herself, just in passing, that she didn't know she was pregnant when she started working there. Just a stupid lie, so they could look like nicer people than they were. The employee turnover was insane. They were micromanagers who treated their employees horribly. One guy submitted his 2-week notice the week before we had a 2-day holiday, and they made it effective immediately, thus screwing him out of pay for those days. Going to the bathroom. Be sure to log that in time since they need to know you spent every minute. Their employee reviews mention words like toxic, terrible, and wish I could forget I worked there. We once had some overflow work, and they had me find someone to handle it. Literally, the first person I called turned me down flat. She had already done work for them and had to take them to court to get paid and still didn't recover all she was owed. I had complained to a few coworkers regarding an ongoing issue with our 401k contributions to our accounts, along with a few other issues. It got back to management and I was fired. I was a really good employee, but was tired of being treated not just poorly, but with great suspicion. They assumed everyone was out to screw them, which will tell you something about their own approach to other people. At that point, I didn't care, but when they got my unemployment denied because someone sent me an email, that really pissed me off. Yeah, that was a crappy decision by the commission, but they bought that crap anyway. The woman at the commission actually asked me, in the snottiest voice, just how did that person, a former employee, know my email? Yeah, lady, he used to work there. He knew everyone's. Here's some petty revenge to tide you over. Not terribly long after that, one of my former coworkers sent me a copy of the wife's mugshot. Apparently, she had been pulled over for a traffic violation. Things went sideways and she was arrested. I wasn't a bit surprised because she was always an entitled witch who thought rules didn't apply to her. Over the next few days, I went to several different places with fax services and sent her mugshot to the company's fax number. I also went by at night to tape some up around their office building. So here we are, many years later, and about a year ago I was reading some gossip columns about celebrities and saw a familiar name. One of the McGrifty's offspring has become engaged to a celebrity worth double-digit millions. Of course, my curiosity was sparked, so I thought I would see if they were even in business any longer. I turned to my friend Google and found they are defying all logic and justice. Indeed, still in business. However, I also discovered the delightful news that the husband was in the middle of an active bankruptcy. I could only see docket entries, which include a motion for emergency sale of their homestead. Wondering if they had managed to sell their $1 million-plus home, I popped over the county assessor's website and looked up their address. They still showed as owners, but when I checked ownership history, I saw that title had been transferred a few months before. Okay, so they did sell the house to an LLC. Interesting. I am on alert. I decided to look a little closer at MB and find their Instagram account. Well, what do you know, the Instagram name is almost the same name that took title to the McGrifty's house. Now I am very interested, and I really need to know what the house sold for. I am suspicious by nature, and I know these people. Besides smelling a rat, I also smell an opportunity to drop some karma on them. I did a little more digging and finally hit gold with a 72-page document that includes every lion and judgment against them, and there are lots. They have judgments against them from 2 different banks, one for around $2 million and another over $500,000. Their house went into foreclosure some months back, and they owed $400K more than the property was worth. I also found a notice from the state commission that they owe an employee $3K. The sweetest, though, is that they have close to $2 million in IRS tax liens against them. All told, they were close to $4 million in debt. I was overjoyed. The best part, however, was the much-desired and lovely copy of the sales contract, which shows the sales price is more than $500K below the appraised value. The motion also states that the husband says this is a good sales price. Yeah, for the buyer, his future ex-in-law. He doesn't care since he isn't getting a nickel of the money. It's all going to the mortgage company who agreed to settle for the sales price. Now, I'm no bankruptcy attorney, but this looks shady as heck to me, and as a tax-paying U.S. citizen, I feel compelled to report what I believe might be fraud. I copied the tax rolls showing properties in that area rarely sell for under $1 million, and their property was valued at over $1.3 million. I also included a screenshot of MB's Instagram page announcing the engagement and showing the Instagram name was pretty much the same as the purchaser. One last thing I found was a little blurb along with their picture in the Rich Neighborhood Happenings publication mentioning the McGrifties hosted an intimate get-together for 30 at some nightclub around the holidays. After the husband filed for bankruptcy, and all while asking the court to discharge millions upon millions in debt. Just for fun, I took a screenshot of that, too. I sent copies of all to the bankruptcy judge, bankruptcy trustee, and lawyers for the mortgage company, along with a nice cover letter pointing out a few other inconsistencies. Then I sit back and wait. After a bit of thought, I decide the information I have is too special not to be shared with others. Now, the wife considers herself a mover and a shaker in the higher echelons of the business world, when in truth she's just a pretentious wanna-be, and a broke one at that. I must give her credit, though. She has a large internet presence and has promoted herself quite effectively. A lot of that is based on something she did a while back that brought her a lot of attention at the time, and she played it up to the hilt. Funny thing, though, I believe that very same accomplishment is what started the downward financial spiral, since it was a very expensive endeavor that doesn't seem to have paid off as they had hoped. Several websites list the company's revenue at $5–10 million a year, but it's a lie. Less than 2 years ago, the company had a total of $391.37 in the only corporate bank account. Gotta love those bankruptcy records. That kind of blatant nonsense really cheeses me off, so I sent copies of all the judgments and highlighted the part where Mrs. said they were broke and drowning in debt to the chair of some Ivy League college women's board that she belongs to and pays $20K a year to be a member. I also sent copies to someone in politics with whom the wife had curried a suck-up relationship for years. I'll eventually get around to sending something to D&B so they can make a correction. After about a week, I checked the docket sheet and just about fell out of my chair laughing. There, on the bankruptcy court docket sheet, was response to order filed by Avenging Witch. Not really, but you get the picture. Although I was highly amused, I was also a bit freaked out because I really didn't expect it to become part of the public record. However, I did expect there to be some sort of blowback. They are currently being sued for non-payment of rent by a past landlord, their second time for this sort of thing. The first time they stopped paying rent, they were locked out of the premises, but according to court docs, picked the lock and moved their possessions out in the middle of the night. Landlord sued and was granted a $45K judgment against them that they actually paid. They eventually quit paying rent to the new landlords, and that is the case still in court. Since they broke their lease, they could be on the hook for around $400K. Concerned for their current landlord, I made sure to send them evidence of their tenants' propensity for stiffing their landlords and warned them not to let them get too fast past due. While looking over the filings of their current court case, I discovered a few inconsistencies. For example, the wife wrote in an email to the landlord that she was working to settle her debt with the IRS and that had to be a priority. The debt that was dismissed in bankruptcy. She also claimed that they had employees that had been there since the company started, which is true, Mr. and Mrs. McGrifties. I am 99% sure they are the only ones. I shared that information with the plaintiff's attorney and suggested they were being rather disingenuous. Such a lovely word for liar. Oh, and that document, too, became part of the public record. I do take great satisfaction in knowing that they are now aware that someone is keeping track of their misfortunes and actively seeking to make them worse. Oh, goodness, that reminds me. Shortly after I discovered all this information, I sent them a condolence card telling them I had heard of their tax liens and judgments, and it couldn't have happened to two more deserving people. Signed it, Karma, Jerks. As for me, great things happened after I left the McGrifties. I did get my unemployment, took a job that ended when my new boss resigned, but it was just long enough to qualify. Pretty sure the McGrifties ended up being on the hook for most of it after all. I then went to work for a wonderful guy who paid for me to go back to college, finish my bachelor's, and get a master's degree. As an undergrad, I co-wrote 2 papers with an awesome professor that were published in peer-reviewed journals. I've saved a nice sum of money, own a lake house, and look forward to retiring in a few years and enjoying myself, all while the McGrifties basically have nothing. The offspring did marry MB recently, so I guess they'll have the hope that some of that money will migrate over to them, or they can get MB to invest in their failure of a company. Let's hope there's a prenup. Thanks for hanging in there and hope you found it worth the read. I don't mind when my roommates borrow my stuff. We've all been there. All I ask is that they replace what they take. You drink my milk, just buy me a new one. It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, my roommate doesn't seem to get this. She keeps taking my stuff, and when I ask her to please replace everything she takes, she'll buy one new thing and forget to do it the next time despite having more money than me. I finally snapped when I wanted to wash my clothes, but only found an empty box that used to contain my washing powder. I don't buy fancy or expensive stuff, and I don't care about brands. After using the last of my powder a week earlier, she could literally have bought the cheapest no-brand powder in the world, and I would have been fine. I just snapped. I had told her over and over to not use my washing powder if she wasn't going to replace it, and I just had enough. I bought a new box of washing powder, some Dylon machine dye, mixed it with a bit of the washing powder and dumped it into the old box. When the dye is dry, it looks like washing powder, especially if you're not expecting it. I took my new box of washing powder to my room and waited. A week later, I came home from work and saw her laundry hanging outside, all with a mysterious pink color. She stomped up to me and demanded to know what I had done. I told her I was going to dye my own clothes, and someone had told me the shade would be lighter if I mixed it with powder. Lie, of course. Then asked her why she had used it when it had clearly been in a box with my name on it when I had told her not to use it because she never replaced it. I don't think she believed me, but she finally got the message. She almost never takes my stuff, and when she does, she's quick to replace it.